Welcome to the Pantheon Plus Rewind. Well, it's hard to believe, but here we are, saying hello to you for the 100th time. Yep, it's true, my friends. We are about to dive into episode 100 of the Pantheon Plus Rewind. And if you're joining us for the first time, this is a show covering the development of Pantheon Rise of the Fallen and forging the bonds of community so that this future MMORPG can be our home for a very long time. We've got a really special show lined up for you today with an awesome guest, tons of listener messages, our regular discussions, and so much more. So put on those party hats, light the candles on the cake, and pop the champagne with me, Theric, and my celebratory co-hosts, Desrin and on this week's Rewind. Okay, so there's a little tease there. I want to introduce, we're so happy to have a fantastic guest co-host with us today, the one and only, the man that famously took the blame for his DPS pulling aggro off the tank, Mr. Redbeardflynn. How are you doing, Red?
I'm doing great. I am honored to be here. You know, I remember it was almost a year ago when I think I got my first community spotlight on Pantheon Plus. And You've been so supportive and a true representative of the Pantheon community and what makes this game so special.
Oh man. Yeah, dude, that's awesome. I remember when you sort of started making content for Pantheon and, you know, the videos on YouTube and then streaming and all the stuff you started doing. And it was so in line, I thought, with like the spirit of the Pantheon community.
Yeah.
And Desrin, I know you had the same reaction. We talk about it all the time when we're highlighting, you know, your clips and your content. But Desrin, right? Like we just had the same instant reaction. Like this guy just makes sense.
Yep.
It just fits, right?
Yeah, it just fits right perfectly with like the vibe we've got going on, and you know, just a genuine dude. like that's I just appreciate that. So you know, happy to spotlight you and finally get you on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. So so we got a lot to talk about. So we should get going to it. But Des, I want to ask you, how are you doing? Haven't seen you, haven't talked to you as much this week as I usually do.
Well, you know, we got some stuff going on. And this week has been pretty dang busy. Really excited for this episode, obviously, as I can't stop talking about it. Anyone in our circles will probably attest to. But I'm feeling really good. I think it's like this is 100. It's a milestone, but I mean it is like a sign pointing to the future, and so I'm just excited. This is obviously going to be a massive show today. So I hope everyone's strapped in. I'm so excited for everything to come, man.
Yeah. It's going to be a bit of a long one today, but as it should be for a milestone episode. So, you know, I mentioned in the intro that we did ask for voice messages, and you guys came through. You absolutely delivered on that, and I can't tell you how happy that makes us. So what we're going to do is actually mix them in throughout the show. So we've got the perfect one to start with, and this comes from a listener, Okenair. Now, this is the part where we usually read the raid party for the week. And we're going to do that, but we're going to change it up a little for the occasion because as you can see on the graphic that Sparrow has graciously made, as she always does, we've got our raid party for the week. But instead of reading out the names, we're going to start the show with this amazing piece put together by Okenair, which kind of does it better anyways. So we think it's a perfect way to start. So here we go.
My name is Minus. Welcome to episode 432 Rewind. Rise of the Fallen MMO Quests Pantheon. Once again, time to pledge. Very excited. We're here to talk. Let's get this party to
share your thoughts. Well, this is a perfect segue, actually.
Co-host Derek.
Weekly Adventures, co-host Desrin. We're almost professional.
Full disclosure.
Dangerous combination. Creating content and optimizations. Got a lore video coming. Cannot wait, which is all about brewing fast and some sort of like cake. Mail on a Sunday.
news and notes.
Schedule for this week.
Hot cocoa. All these people.
Supports the show. Adventuring party.
You ready? Let's go.
Let me take a deep breath. Breakout, Felder, Redbeardflynn, Shoddy,
Lucille, Bobo, Miltrin, Benjamin Caldwell,
Moobert,
Wizen,
Sweet, Archbishop, Mojo Horizon,
Preston 27,
The Great Vendini,
Annoying Llama,
Ryzen Revelry,
Joel Brown, Nathan Hawkins, Worlds into Worlds,
Corsasaurus,
Grizzly is now a bear warrior.
Crowsinger, In This Way of Storms, Jason on the Scar,
Beardlord. That's it for this week's. Nope. There's more. Andrew Wittis,
Isaiah A, Aaron Ellis,
Walking Waste,
Daimlos, Aaron,
Fazool EQ, Your Gatorbait,
Caleb, Solo 2,
Kelly DeCourcy, Dan Johnson, Ziploc Sparrow, BitCrunch,
Famon, Bounty Code, Grogu,
Xanafel, WikiWoo,
Zerjerk,
Eldrin, Ryan Rat, Tetsu,
We Smoke Bitcoins,
Jadaka,
Shuriken,
Stands in Fire, Graceland,
Man of Rohan.
and that is the lore you know.
I guess that's kind of becoming a thing now.
But it makes for a good podcast.
We'll see.
Wow, guys, like, what did you think when you heard that song? Is that not amazing?
Like I was telling you, this literally like it started to get me choked up. Like this one just hit me so good. Oh my goodness.
And Red, I know you were saying you weren't going to sure if you wanted to watch it, listen to it now, or you wanted to wait till the premiere. Which did you end up choosing?
I'm waiting for the premiere.
Okay.
Oh,
yeah,
I wasn't sure.
Yep.
You're gonna love it.
I want to see it live and react and chat with everybody.
Oh, perfect.
You won't be disappointed. Absolutely. I actually played it for my wife and one of my kids, and they're like, "Holy cow!" They're like, "Somebody made that for you?" I'm like, "Yeah." Can you believe that? Like, it's crazy. Yeah. So it was awesome. Open Air, you absolutely went above and beyond, and could not appreciate it any more than we do. So, as always, if you want to help out and join the adventuring party, you can feel free to drop a donation in the super chat during the YouTube premiere. We also have our Patreon page for a more permanent seat on the party. And the last thing I want to say before we get to the news, and I'm sorry, I know it's a little bit of a longer intro today, but we are giving away 2 Pathfinder pledges, and 3 Watchers pledges, and 1 $100 pledge, which I'm blanking on the name of right now, but
Beta pledge.
we figured it. What is it, Des?
No, I was just saying it's a beta pledge though.
It is.
Know the name,
yeah,
but.
at the end of the day, it's a beta pledge, right? So that's what matters. But anyway, we're giving away those pledges today in the show because if you submitted a voicemail message, then you're already eligible for any of the Pathfinder's pledges. If you're here with us in Premier Chat, you're eligible for any of the Watchers or the $100 pledge. So the way to enter your name for that is just type in @Theric with the YouTube play button emoji in chat anytime before the lore segment of the show. And at the end of the show, we're going to do the draw, and we'll pull the names out of the hat and see who wins the pledges. So good luck to everyone.
Yeah.
And fellas, it's time to get this party started, right?
Woohoo!
Yeah, let's go.
All right. This week in Visionary Realms News and Notes. Okay, so first up, we've got VR released their May 22 event calendar. So let's take a peek at that. Now, the VIP Developer Roundtable discussion is with their crafting designer, Nefel, for April. That's going on this week. It's happening this week, and it's going to be released to the public then on May 6th. So make sure to check that out for you future Pantheon crafters out there. Then on May 12th, we'll get the next video live stream from VR. Now, again, same thing as like a couple months. They don't. It's not detailed what they're going to be talking about, but I remember them saying not too long ago. I think it was last week we talked about it. They were maybe thinking of demoing the monk using some of the techniques that they revealed last month or in the newsletter. So I don't know if that's what's going to happen. Maybe they need more time. I don't know. It's not on the calendar here, but something to keep in mind. And then on May 19th, the next May newsletter comes out. And of course, the roundtable will be May 27th at the end of the month. So I think there's some, potentially pretty exciting news on tap for May. And, it just feels like these weeks fly by a little bit because, I don't know, hopefully that's a good thing for everybody. But I want to ask you guys, anything in particular you guys are hoping to hear about from VR in May, like expectations? And, Redbeard, I'm going to throw you right into it. Let's start with you. What are you looking for here in May?
Wow, I mean, no pressure, right? Just starting off with a newbie right off the bat,
No pressure.
Okay, so let me just calm down. I'm excited to see what news we get about crafting because that's been an area that's kind of shrouded in a lot of mystery so far. So will this be more theory or will it be a concrete update on what to expect with crafting? I'm also curious about the dev stream and what the differences between the April's state of the game and May's most up-to-date progress is going to be. But you mentioned Monk, and now I'm thinking I might need to revisit the Monk.
Oh man, with all the info coming out, I see it. I see it.
You know what I see, Red? I see, the animation picture they showed last month, with the monk potential techniques. I see some action in your future for some reason. I think your content is suited towards a physical demonstration of these techniques in some way. I don't know. Is that like putting too much pressure on you or what?
Well, I don't know. I think you're gonna get me in trouble with my wife because I'm gonna injure myself somehow, and so I'll just blame you.
I think it'd be worth it for some Redbeard mocap, right?
It's all for the content.
We need Redbeard mocap in our life. I can tell you. That sounds like a Starbucks drink or something. But
man, but like, so with all the monk stuff that I'm sure we're going to be getting, and all the other exciting things, like I gotta say, I'm going to be a little bit boring in my expectations, but it's a really big expectation that I have very heavily on my heart, and that like I'm just hoping to hear that like sweet voice of Kyle Olson saying vinyl is integrated and we're moving forward. That would make the whole month for me.
Totally. I think that I had that sort of in my notes initially too, and then I thought, I think I said that last week, but I mean that is 100% what I want to hear too, and I just can't come soon enough, right? Like we just can't hear this soon enough, and the waiting is the hard part. But like I said, the weeks are going by quickly, so maybe we'll see. That would be very, very nice. So
I'll throw
keeping your throw a party, a vinyl party. Let's maybe have like some. I see like disco in our future or something like that. I don't know. All right, so let's talk about some news and break it down and get our thoughts on some things. I wanted to talk about something we didn't have time for this last week. We mentioned it, but we didn't have time to talk about it, and that's the interview that Joppa gave with Josh Corbett on the Countdown to Classic podcast. So if you haven't checked that out, definitely go do so. But I thought there were some notable bits worthy of commentary, and let's hit a few of those. The first one, I think, made probably the biggest headlines I want to say out of this. Maybe I'm misreading that, but it was Joppa coming out pretty strong against dailies in MMOs. And Desmond, I said that I was happy that Josh kind of pushed him to identify something he doesn't like in modern MMOs, and Joppa did, sort of take dailies to task, I guess. He said that, they really, in his mind, create a really negative relationship between the player and the game. So let's dig into that idea a little bit. And Redbeard, I want to start with you again. What do you think about dailies? Do you agree with this take? And maybe why or why not?
Okay, so you can't see because this is a podcast, but even as you were saying about how strongly he came out against them, like I pumped my fist in the air because I 100% agree. Like, so I'm very happy to see how strongly Joppa feels about dailies, because I can see why dailies were attractive to devs. The idea is simple, right? MMOs need people. How do you ensure people log in? Daily tasks that reward you for being there each day. But it's all artificial. It creates a vicious cycle where people begin to resent the game because it's like homework. Get on just long enough to finish the tasks you have to do, not the ones you want to do.
Yes.
The game needs to be... Sorry.
No, go for it.
Ahead.
You're on a roll, man.
Yeah, don't stop the daily rant. I like it.
The game needs to be the incentive, essentially. Like it's artificial incentive will work for a little while, but not it's not a long-term fix. And I think you see it kind of cannibalized from the game because it just takes away from other parts of the game that should be interesting and fun.
100%. Yeah. What about you, Des? What was your reaction to hearing Joppa talk about dailies?
Dude, I'm speared through the heart because I feel kind of called out. I still log into Elder Scrolls Online, and this whole entire last month was just to log in and get my daily login and do my daily crafting writs. Like that was it. That's literally, I have it scheduled on my calendar daily to log in just for 10 minutes to just do that really quick, even though I don't actively play really anymore since the last like event or whatever. And so yeah, this is exactly what it is.
What do you, how does, I mean, do you feel do you feel good about that? Like, is that, and I'm not trying to be like,
No,
I'm not trying to be like,
it's legit. Like so the funny thing about this is just a few days ago, so the month's almost over. I think there's only one day left. I just have to log in one more time tonight and I get all the, but you know what?
Awesome.
Even though I have, faithfully logged in every day, there was a day last week, I think, or earlier this week, where the servers were down and I couldn't log in during the time that I was trying to log in. It literally wouldn't let me like get in the game. And I was like, oh, well, okay, I'll just like do it later. And I forgot about it, obviously. And so now I don't get the last reward. And I'm actually like a little upset because it's like I tried to log in. And the funny thing is, like, I don't even really care about the rewards. Like, the rewards at the end of the month are always like really trivial. But I still feel like annoyed that I missed out. And I actually like really hate that like this cycle, because I do think ESO is a great game, but I hate that like the rewards are so good just for logging in and spending that. Like, you get more out of that 10 minutes than you would out of playing for an hour. And I just, man, I'm just like, I'm really happy that Joppa and the team is like thinking about like what he calls that relationship between players and game, because like, obviously, they have a lot more respect for the player and the player's agency without like going down the other side and saying like they're fearing that the players might leave. Like, they don't seem to be afraid of that at all. And the fact is that the team is like so much more focused on just making a game that on its own merits makes people want to play, like, versus, making a game that just hooks people in any way possible. Like, any mode of psychological manipulation to make them remain loyal. Like, I mean, like, this just sounds like a dysfunctional relationship, right? It's such a good analogy.
I feel like it incentivizes the login and disincentivizes playing the actual game.
Yes. But it should incentivize the playing because the game is supposed to be good, right? Like,
yeah, but when they report the numbers, they just report how many logins. They don't report how long you play.
Yep. It's all about the monthly active users, the MAUs, man.
And that's,
there you go.
So the metric of success supports this, this tactic and this. I mean, Joppa used the word, I think he said predatory or something to that effect. And he
came close. He kind of
came
backed
close
off
to
on
it.
that, I think.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
He backed off a little bit, but I mean, he's not wrong though. I mean, let's be honest, because that's what it is. It is predatory, and it's like you said, Des, playing on people's psychological need to, whether you're completionist or just the need to, do a task that is repetitive and keep doing something to see it through to its end. But it's so funny because it's just this, they're measuring success based on the number of logins. And again, then you get into this whole thing about people being upset about servers being down. And it's like, are they upset because the server's down because they can't play, like you were saying, Des? Or is it because they can't meet their login
because I missed my login. I could care less if the server was down.
Right.
Yeah.
If there were no dailies, would people be so upset when the server goes down, Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So I'm really glad like he went so hard. Like, I know you say he like backed off a little bit, but I think he made the message pretty clear, and I love the analogy of the relationship, and like what my takeaway is that VR is actually trying to build a healthy relationship with the players, right?
Yes, exactly. And I think that's go ahead, Red.
I was just saying, like, I mean, it was literally like I started, thinking about this before actually watching the interview, and then as I was listening to Joppa speak, is like like everything he was saying, like that's exactly how I feel about dailies, and it is probably the thing I feel most strongly about as a negative thing in MMOs today is dailies, because of that disincentivizing of the gameplay itself, where you have like so much time and effort spent on the game, and then you just throw in a daily quest to make sure people log in, and it's
Yeah.
Oh, so really interesting thing actually to note, because I forgot to put it in our show notes here, but like I found out that all of Josh Gorbat's questions were live. Like a lot of interviews, they send the questions ahead of time so the person knows like what to answer. So, but no, Josh actually hates that And so all of these questions were completely candid by Joppa. So I just want to throw that out there because that was a neat little nugget, because usually he would say flying mounts, right? Which, but
he did mention it.
Off the cuff, he was just like, boom, dailies.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you saw it in the interview when he actually took 30 seconds to come up with an answer. And we've seen Joppa do that before, just on a bit of a tangent here. I love it when he gathers his thoughts rather than just sort of like trying to give an answer in the moment, when it's so much more insightful and thoughtful when he does that. Now, he did mention flying mounts, and we already know the infamous quote from Joppa is that as long as he's with VR, flying mounts will never be in Pantheon. That is the quote that I think a lot of us have, written down and posted on our wall somewhere, because it's such a strong statement. He actually talked about it a little bit more. He said, flying mounts, he admitted flying mounts are fun, but then again, so is eating a whole bag of candy. It's like, you know what? There's a reason we don't do it, right? Because it's not good for us. It's not good for the...
I mean, speak for yourself. I'm eating all my Reese's like as we speak right now.
Yeah, I'm jealous.
Well, hey, man,
but
I'll deal with the stomachache later. It's okay.
Such is the mindset of all MMO players everywhere. It's like, I just want my stuff. I want it now.
Dude, but Joppa's really on top of these analogies, man.
Yeah. Well, it's very, very wise, man. Now let's hit into another topic that they discussed here. And this one, it's kind of related to dailies, a little different though. And it's a little more broad, I guess I would say. It's talking about the generational differences when it comes to how people play MMOs today. They talked about having, goals. What are the goals based on in MMO players? And is there a difference, in terms of demographics? So, for example, younger players, I think that was sort of the discussion, was that younger players tend to be more level progression focused, whereas more older players or people who have been playing MMOs longer look for more of the horizontal progression. At least that was my read on it, and I'll see what you guys think. But, he did reference Pantheon's vision for a 2-hour gameplay window that would allow for progression in doing things like developing skills, perception ping hunting, and even socializing as part of progression, which I think is interesting. So Desrin, I want to ask you, we talked about this a little bit, but do you think this as a definition of progression can really resonate with a very large player base?
Yeah. I mean, I think the 2-hour window is great for a pretty substantial amount of people. I think that type of progression could feel like totally good to the whole gamut of people if they had a game that got them used to it. However, when it comes to that kind of duality, the demographics there, I do not agree that older players are more horizontally focused, or the other way around, that like young people are all about hitting that level cap. Like, I really don't think it has anything to do with age. I think it's entirely because of, games they've grown up with, or games they've attached to for different reasons at different points in their lives. And of course, like Iz mentioned, what their goals are for playing games. Like, some people just want to zone out, right? Like, but some That's people are very like challenging, or they really like that feel of being challenged, or that, sense of accomplishment or whatever. And so, like, I know it's a bit of semantics, right? But I'm just really not a big fan of those kinds of distinctions. In part because it kind of implies that younger people are less likely to enjoy Pantheon, which I think is going to be demonstrably untrue with time. But, I am on the younger side of this community as it is right now, I would say. But I know a lot of people younger than myself that are also just looking for a world. It just hasn't been presented to them. So yeah.
I wasn't, it's a sort of interesting discussion to try and sort through, I guess. And I wasn't 100% sure that I was understanding that distinction correctly. So I'm glad to hear you sort of take it from a different perspective and look at it with some other, another lens, I guess you would say. But Red, what do you think about this?
Well, first, so we're not going to talk about Joppa mentioning that Fortnite and Tarkov are inspirations for Pantheon. I mean, I can just use that as clickbait for my next YouTube video, but
I expected you would.
Good ammo.
Yeah, if you don't, I'll be disappointed. Yeah, no, I mean, you're right, though. I mean, we always jump on it when he mentions a game that we're familiar with. I'm just not a Tarkov player or a Fortnite player, but, when he talks Elden Ring, I'm like, right? And Desert and I are both all into it. But yeah, man, it's a good bring up for sure. So, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to take it a little bit of a different way here and start with what was a warning sign to me, talking about that 2-hour play window. And the warning sign to me was actually with the last bit that Joppa mentioned, and it was socializing. So socializing is not something I'd ever count as progression. So I don't like hearing that used in the same sentence as progression, but I want to point out here that in the interview, social aspects as part of progression sounded more like an afterthought to me than anything else after Joppa had listed off a series of other activities like swimming, getting your cold acclimation up, picking up weapons to salvage from orc camps, etc. So I think to put that in context, this would all resonate. I liken it a bit to New World, and before, don't get mad at me. I know, New World, but because New World for a while it made you feel like you were accomplishing things no matter how long you were logged in. It kind of resonated in that way. Like it was, whether it was harvesting or crafting or leveling, killing things, doing quests, it was constant reinforcement of what you were doing. And I think when I think of progression, I think of that reinforcement, that as you're doing, like you are feeling like you are progressing towards a goal and you're being reinforced with something in the game that tells you you're doing well. It can even go back to EverQuest and talk about, farming faction when I was in Velius and getting that faction up, and then occasionally seeing the shift from Warmly to Ally, or that kind of thing, that progression.
Yep.
It's different, but every kill was something going towards that. So even if it was you needed 1,000 kills, well, if you can log in and do 30, that's 30 more than you had before.
Yeah.
So you're still going towards that.
Man, it's so funny that you mentioned that, because really the only difference in New World, and this has been shouted out by even hard people that are very strongly against New World in general, but you can't deny the visceral UI and sound elements of the game, and how when you level up like logging or something, like that whole little like animation and sound effect and everything that goes, it hits you in your brain, right? And really that's the only difference between that and seeing, your skill in one-handed blunt has increased to 53. Like,
right.
It's literally just a UI thing.
And I think it's a balance, because what game was it? Was it Elion recently that like you logged in and you're level 150? And so like there's a balance between making the progress feel meaningful and making it feel excessive.
Yeah, like it can't happen all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think I literally like, in Elion, I think I really did like level up 20 or 30 times in the tutorial, and that was just, like I just quit. I was like, no, I'm done. This is not for me.
So that really gets to the heart of the matter, and that is generationally or demographic wise, what is the proper pace of progression? Like, are we, is one demographic, expecting quicker progression, is one demographic okay with a slower progression? Like, is the Elion, rate of progression, is that the expectation? Because it's certainly not EverQuest anymore. I mean, that's slow. I mean, we all can acknowledge that EverQuest progression was generally slow. But like you say, Red, there was multiple vectors, whether it was faction, whether it was something else. But I guess the real question in my mind now that we're having this discussion is like, is it the pace? Is it the pace of progression what's important here?
Like, how often do you need that pat on the back?
Yeah. Right. And I think I wonder also, like, because it has the meaningfulness of it, right? So there's a difference between like just the pace and how impactful it is. So like talking about like raising your one-handed blunt skill, well, that's still progression, but it's not nearly as meaningful as getting a level.
Well, so I would argue with that, because that now we've got techniques, my guy. So
that's okay. Okay, that's true. That's true.
I get where you're going, but you can tell that VR has this on their mind, because they're remedying exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah. You're not wrong there. So I guess what I was trying to get to was this idea that having the different avenues of progression and all the different things that Joppa was talking about, like I mean, I like that in Joppa's description of it, it was actual things that he was doing too. Like, but the thing that got me was going to the orc camp and picking up an item to salvage as progression.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like a completely, like, that's not leveling, that's not faction, that's, you know, that's a completely different thing. And then the acclamation and things like that. So there's all these different things that you could do to progress.
Yeah.
So, and then you could potentially do that while looking for a group to get some experience and things like that. So I think if you have more stuff like that, then you can kind of pull out the time between those big moments of progression, like between levels, because there's other things you can do instead of just sticking to one thing every day.
Yeah. And as long as it's not just like standing still in town that's progressing you, it feels pretty good. Yeah.
Or logging in every day.
Login progression. Oh man, way to tie it back there. That's awesome, man. And those are all really good points, you guys. And the only thing I'll mention that I want to just touch on quickly about this again to finish it up, I guess, is the socializing. I do feel like, although it's not like maybe a mechanic in the game, I do feel like there's sort of a meta place for where you could define your socializing in a game like Pantheon's going to be, where its social aspect is really emphasized, that you could sort of define as progression, but that's a little bit maybe just taking it a step too far, moving beyond the mechanics.
Talking about social capital now.
maybe that's a
right.
subject for another rewind.
Yeah, it probably is. I should probably leave it there. So let's get into something that's even more spicy, perhaps. But the interview went to the PvP discussion. Now, PvP is not something that comes up all that often in this community, but Josh did ask about the nature of PvP in Pantheon. And it's something they really only mention when they're asked directly. And PvP hasn't really been the feature piece of any kind of live stream or dev roundtable, as far as I remember. Joppa affirmed that it is a PvE focused game, but will have PvP, but it will strictly be an opt-in way to play the game. He said, quote, "It needs its own server." So Redbeard, I want to ask you, are you a fan of PvP? I can't remember I know you've talked about it, but I can't remember. And how do you feel like, the way they've talked about PvP being implemented in Pantheon?
Okay, so I'm gonna go off a little bit here, so stick with me. But I am a huge fan of PvP with a caveat. So I played Ultima Online in the PvP heyday. I was on a PvP server when I played WoW. I PvP'd in Star Wars Galaxy, etc., etc. I am not a fan of PvP in the open world. In my experience, it just doesn't work out the way people want it to. The way that you see it in trailers, that's not the reality that I've had in my experience. I get ganked at level 3. So it just, the ganking and uneven numbers, it just kind of spoils it a little bit. So it leads to a lot of potential for griefing and frustration. And I guess I may be in the minority in thinking that. So I'm actually more of a fan of structured PvP. So think battlegrounds in World of Warcraft. So this is where I kind of realized that Pantheon is not being built to appeal to the kind of PvP that I personally like, and that's totally fine. This game doesn't have to be everything I want or you want or anyone. Joppa did mention that they want to have some options for more guardrail type PvP, but for this to work, I feel like it needs to be the focus from the start. I took a look at PvP in WoW versus PvP in, say, Final Fantasy 14, and there's a very clear difference in the success of that structured PvP. I think they just actually revamped PvP in Final Fantasy 14.
Yeah, I just read something about that not too long ago.
Yeah, it's been a mess. I mean, it's not as bad as PvP in EverQuest 2 was, but
Desert just fell out of his chair a little bit.
He ain't wrong.
I mean, that was a little rough. But I just kind of think that the way that it's being mentioned in this interview, and everything could change, but it kind of sounds like it's going the way of a PvP server. And like, I'm thinking of Zek with the EverQuest. And so it'll have its fans. I mean, I think there'll be a lot of fans that kind of enjoy that PvP game where the classes aren't necessarily built for PvP. So you kind of make your own PvP meta. And I think there's a specific group of people that will really enjoy that. But I will probably give it a miss.
Yeah. There's a lot to that. Desmond, you've talked about your love for Mortal Online 2 lately, and that game, although it has so much more than PvP, that is sort of the label that's been applied to it. And I'm curious, how you see PvP being in Pantheon ideally, and like, should it just do what Mortal Online 2 has done? Is that the gold standard, or something else?
Oh man. So, I mean, Mortal Online 2 to me is kind of becoming the modern gold standard for PvP centric MMOs. I'll admit that. But I can't stress this enough. It's a totally different kind of game than Pantheon. And what works for Mortal almost certainly won't work for Pantheon. Like, for example, Mortal Online 2, you've experienced this. You don't exactly move quickly. Like, combat isn't exactly fast paced. And so a lot of the PvP in Mortal is strategic in the sense of you're moving groups of people around to either avoid larger groups or to, seek out opportunistic, it's more like a realistic kind of PvP, if anything, where if I think, WoW open world PvP, it's, more twitchy and more trying to find random people in the world and, getting these kind of duels and stuff. And in MO2, like, a duel can last 10-15 minutes. Like, that's not a gank, like,
wow. I didn't know that. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Two skilled players in MO2, you can almost duel indefinitely because that's how the game is built. And it just wouldn't feel good in a typical tab target MMO. Like, it'd feel like watching tanks fight, right? Like, but yeah, I think when it comes to Pantheon's implementation of PvP, I think it's going to be more like the Vanguard PvP servers, which I see as this like kind of like Wild West situation because the game was not built around it at all. Yeah. And they kind of just like let people go, and some people absolutely loved it because they had the notion that, hey, like, there's no special rules for me here. Like, some classes are going to be insanely imbalanced and some are going to be very powerful and not powerful. So like, it just like the precedent was set, and the people that wanted to do that went to those servers. And I'm sure there were plenty that can, and maybe even in our chat, that that know what that was like. And but it's not for everyone. So when I think like that whole opt-in situation, I think he's just meaning like opt-in as in you opt in by making a character on that server. But
yeah, that's what I got too.
Yeah. So like, I don't know, but if they brought it to PvE, like an opt-in, like you go to a Coliseum, I think that's something a lot of people really have enjoyed in games in the past, right? Because it's localized. If you don't go to the Coliseum and enter the contest, you don't PvP. So
right.
Yeah, I don't know. I think just to like end my thought real quick, I do see some potential for PvP in Pantheon just because of how dynamic the faction system is. And I don't think a lot of people have seen that in MMOs before, where like faction really matters. It's not just like good versus evil, right? Or one world versus the other two, and the three-way Elder Scrolls Guild Wars 2 kind of a thing. But really, I don't think the PvP, however they do it, is going to really affect their success. It's like something a lot of people are interested in, a lot of people hate. And so, yeah, I'm not expecting a lot, but I could see some interesting thing for those that do want to participate.
Yeah, my thoughts on this are pretty brief, and I'll keep it that way. But like, I think if they do it the way that you've described in Vanguard, and my question about that would be like, how much development time in Vanguard was devoted to PvP? It sounds like almost none. Like, it sounds like none.
Not a lot.
And I think that's fine. That's fine. As long as that's the case in Pantheon, I don't care. Like, they want to do that, fine. like just do the Wild West thing. We interviewed Kevin Jordan a while ago, and one of the early designers on WoW, he talked about PvP being like, it's such a separate game. It's such a separate thing that if you don't dedicate your resources to it, it's going to feel that way. And so, basically the message being either do it or don't do it. Don't just sort of half-ass it, because that's not a recipe for success. So, if given the choice, I think Pantheon would be way better off not doing it. And I know people won't like hearing me say that, but I think overall it's for the health of making the PvE game that much better. But, that's just me.
So Derek, I want to back you up here and I want to back you up as someone who would absolutely love having the ability to play Battlegrounds in Pantheon, because I kept going back to World of Warcraft for years, largely because I really enjoyed the Battlegrounds and the arenas. But I think with the way because there is a restriction on resources for Pantheon, and because PvP does require, I really feel like any game that has tried to add it or hasn't had it as the focus from the beginning has kind of failed at it. I mean, I think that when they try and do structured PvP with a game that is balanced around PvE, it fails so much. Like Final Fantasy XIV created entirely new skills, and they still failed in a way with PvP. Like the movement felt weird. Like it was very slow, weird PvP in that game, and it just gets really, in a strange way, completely unbalanced with gear and things like that. So I think as someone who would love to have it, I actually don't want Pantheon to focus on it. I want Pantheon to focus on making the best PvE game they can, and then just go from there. Because it's a sacrifice that I would very, very willingly make to not have that in the game, just for them to focus on what the core tenets of the game are. And PvP was not a core tenet.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
exactly. That pretty much echoes my thoughts too, for sure.
I think just like a little tiny stamp here, as much as I like the world of Terminus and I want to spend as much time in it as possible, I am more than okay, considering the circumstances that we have, saying, hey, if I have a PvP itch, I'm happy to choose another game. Going along with the whole not like being afraid of people leaving. Like Pantheon doesn't have to have everything. Like there are other great games out there, and I'm happy to refer people to them.
Yeah. I mean, we already brought up New World and Ashes of Creation. Right. Exactly. A game that's being developed in sort of parallel with this, like that can be the PvP game, let them do that, because they're going to do it way better anyway. So why not? I mean, sort of,
because that's when you look at the core focuses of the games, like it's going to make a difference. Yeah. And Ashes is focusing that way, so let Pantheon focus on the PvE side, and then I'll play both.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes, exactly. There's room for both. Why not both? Yeah. Right. All right.
2 hours each game. There we go. Let's go.
Yeah. No life. I got nothing else to do. Who cares, right? So you guys have heard our thoughts on PvP, and what does the community think, or the Twitterverse, I guess in this case, because Pantheon, the official Twitter account, did put out a question they wanted to know. Here's the question, would you prefer a PvP/PvE hybrid server? What kind of server will you play on at launch? Would you like it to be strictly PvE, PvP, RP, or some sort of hybrid in between? So, fellas, chime in here as we read some of these Twitter posts, because, I try to get a variation of responses as I do, and I try to get varying viewpoints. I'm not trying to look for a consensus, just exploring some interesting perspectives here. So don't have to agree with them, but they're definitely worthy of discussion. And the first one comes to us from Mojo Zawa. They had a bit of a more focus on where their friends play and less about the type of server. They said, I like the added element that open PvP gives, but I also appreciate the anxiety and stress it gives some of my friends that I'll be playing with. So seems like I'll go where they go, make a second PvP character on the most brutal type of server. So, I played EverQuest back in the day. I did not have a character on one of the Zek servers, but Red, you sound like you definitely did, right?
For about 5 minutes. I was like 12 and I ran home screaming.
You needed your mom. You needed some
I needed my Care Bear server. I was done with Ultima Online. I just wanted to play with ogres and trolls. You know,
Your friends, just like Mojo Zawa here. Just I wanted to go where my friends were,
Yeah.
my ogre and troll friends, right?
Yeah, it's super valid, right? Like nowadays we have these communities already, like before we get into the games, and of course that's a conversation for a whole other day. But this is a great example of just a practical application of that. It's like, if I want a PvP experience, but all of my friends don't, like, I'm not going to complain that this game isn't made for PvP. Like, I'm going to go and do the non-PvP thing with my friends, as long as the game is also good, right? Like,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it also goes to what we were just talking about splitting the population. Like if you do PvP and a PvE server, separate servers, you are essentially splitting up your world into people. You're forcing people to make a choice. And I don't know if that's something that Pantheon can do. I mean, really, can they afford to, however big the population is going to be that's going to play this game, can they afford to split that population along those lines? So it's a open question, I guess. The next tweet comes from Muscle Geek with the hoodie on Twitter, and they said the WoW solution I think works well here. Servers shouldn't be designated as PvE or PvP. Players should be able to turn it on and off as they please and go into their own phases of the worlds. This will allow friends to play together without having to choose. So just what we were just talking about, but it brings up the specter of instancing, right?
Ooh.
So,
yeah. And I mean, so I'm familiar with that because I played WoW when they went to that method, because I had been on a PvP server and then it switched to just a normal server with toggle PvP, and they incentivized it, right? Like you get extra experience when you have it on, but it's still like it wasn't used that much, at least in my experience. Like a full on PvP server, and it wasn't used that much, and it was. So I feel like you're not gonna convince people that don't want a PvP to PvP with just some incentives, and without that many people, it's not gonna be much going on.
So I have to give some credit to this answer, actually, because this is the first time I think I've seen this this kind of idea laid out. And I do find it really interesting, the idea of, not having a separate server and basically just having another version of the world, so to speak, or, they call it a phase or, instance or whatever, that you can flip between on the same server. Because in Pantheon, where, like, for example, mobs, bosses and stuff are going to be probably fairly sought after, you could imagine there's probably going to be less people on the PvP, instance.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
For sure.
Yeah.
So it incentivizes like doing that, but also you're on the PvP instance, so it's a really interesting idea. And I don't want to completely write it off. I'm going to be honest. Like I hate instancing, obviously, but I also like keeping people together. So
Yeah.
I don't know that it I mean, I think the phasing in World of Warcraft was more to deal with population issues than the PvP, because
a lot of games do that.
But so I think this is like almost like a new idea. And for some reason it keeps making me think of Final Fantasy 14 with their server visits.
It's similar,
Yeah.
except for that would be actually switching a server, but yeah.
Yeah, and that's like, I mean, it's different.
Yeah. Well, you know what? You have to sort of, like you say, Des, this is an interesting idea and not something you want to write off initially completely, but, who knows? Who knows if that's what opt-in means, or that's what the toggle,
exactly.
Maybe that's what it looks like. So who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah. The next one's from Old Gray, and they said they don't like open world PvP, but wouldn't mind, say, like PvP lakes or zones, and that way you can avoid it if you want. So yeah, I mean, just keeping the world together, but just making us a specific PvP zone. And I don't think this isn't a new idea. This is something that many games have done. Whether it was it's what I prefer actually is more of a designated, like player designated area. Like there was an area in original EverQuest that nobody ever went to, but it was like the PvP place, right? I remember what it was called, actually. I can see it in my mind.
Arena.
It was, basically. But it was very underused. Nobody did it.
So that was where we gathered for our raids.
I think that's where people had marriages and stuff like that. Isn't that where people went to like do their in-game weddings and stuff? Something like that.
Probably, because it was a big open zone off Lake Wrath. And
Lake Wrath,
we would go there before and after our raids and would kill our guild leader.
Nice.
But like,
man, I was in the wrong guild.
So this is, like you said, this isn't a new idea, but I mean, I got to reference like our old friend RuneScape. I mean, the wilderness is such a popular idea and probably, I would argue the most successful implementation of this kind of a thing. Like they have the whole world. And then they have this little chunk at the top of the world called the wilderness that you go in there. It tells you, it tells you if you go in, like this is what's happening. There's some PvE content. There's some good stuff up there, but like you really don't have to go up there. And maybe all the like diehard RuneScape people will be like, oh no, that's actually where the best stuff is. I don't think so, honestly. But again, I think it's a pretty good example to draw from. I don't know if I would maybe do as much volume of area as the wilderness is, but I think that's a great kind of middle ground, as well as the whole like battlegrounds idea as well, or the arena.
Yeah, like keeping it in world, I think is very important. That really resonates with me. So.
Yeah. There's another game that I think to me it's the best game that ended too soon. And that's Warhammer Online. And they actually had like, I think they literally called them PvP lakes. Maybe not, but they were just zones and they had keeps and things like that. And they were always adjacent to a PvE area. So you had the PvE area, which had the first public quests. And then you had this PvP area right next to it. And so like you had them like right beside each other and they had different progression paths and everything like that. And I would not like foresee that ever happening in Pantheon. It was a cool idea that may have been a bit poorly implemented at times, but it was a cool idea to kind of mingle those two things together where you had the area for PvE and then you had the area for PvP.
Yeah.
So you chose the area where you wanted to go to and you had quests to go to different places in each area, and so it was incentivized.
Yeah, that's a much more like integrated solution, right? Which makes it probably more unlikely to see in Pantheon. But
exactly.
But yeah, again, not like terrible examples to pull from of ways to put it together. Because I think the common thread so far in our conversation has been like, not like we know people are on opposite ends of the spectrum. Like that we're going to get a bunch of comments saying like, no, PvP is terrible. Never do PvP.
100%. 100%.
But the truth is, like, what's more valuable to me and maybe you guys too is not separating the population, right?
Yeah, I think that's sort of where the conversation is leading as well. That's at least my mind is going. Now, the next couple I want to read are sort of taking opposite approaches on whether PvP should be balanced or not. So Steven Adams says, I'll be playing on a PvP server or a hybrid server, depending on what the hybrid server looks like. They prefer a full PvP with all areas being open to it. There's a lot of fun to be had and memories to be made from full PvP. In a game that's not necessarily going to be balanced for it sounds good. But then on the other end of the spectrum, Ty says PvP servers are pretty fun as long as they're balanced. But high-level players ganking low-level players and corpse camping makes the game not fun, which does tend to happen. I'll go to whichever server has the highest amount of Eastern time zone players, probably depending on server latency. So again, we're hearing like, it's sort of secondary consideration, maybe based on where players are, but also should it be balanced or should it just be Wild West? The classes are wildly imbalanced, like you were saying in Van.
Well, I think there's two different kinds of balance in these answers. So, one is balancing the ability to have high levels, just destroy low levels with impunity, which obviously, like, there's so many ways to solve that. I feel like that's kind of not a great out because they're bounty systems. There's, a lot of games have implementations to help solve this. And it's been well researched, right? And then the other one is what you're talking about, which is like class balancing. So, but I definitely go on the far end. I really actually prefer the not balanced at all, because then you get two games in one. The PvE has a certain difficulty scaling, and the has a different difficulty scaling. Your character might be great at PvP, but they actually might be trash at PvE, and I love that.
Yeah, I'd bet that Steven played on one of the Zek servers.
Yeah, I know, and that is kind of the fun of it, right? Like it is kind of the fun of it to have those two different worlds, have different, what's good and what's not in one world, and so different. So, yeah, I don't know. I when it comes to the PvE discussion, I still think, we've had a lot of talks about class balance, and it's the imbalance is sometimes what makes it good, even in a PvE situation. So, how does that translate into PvP? I guess different people have different opinions, but there's a couple diverging opinions right there. Now, this next one, I feel like sort of speaks to my feelings on PvP a little bit. So it's from Court Chamber, and they said, I want a good story. PvP/PvE is like letting the public freely visit a closed set. Keep the rules in place, focus on content, leave the brawling to New World or a lobby game. Reaching masses will dull your game. So that's just sort of like, they're not playing on any sort of PvP. They don't want any in their game. And that's, it taints the experience, I guess you might say. So, and I know a lot of people, like you said, there's strong feelings on both sides. But that's just an example of it, I guess you might say.
Yeah. Yeah, I got
to point out here that New World, you opted into the PvP. I feel like I need to say that. You opted into PvP.
You do that. You defend New World, Red. You defend it. Our audience is going to love you.
It has great sound design, okay? It's a pretty game with no content.
Yeah, we were all there in the beginning, man. I played it. I enjoyed it. We defended it. But the thing is that, it was designed as a PvP game at first, right? And then the change to PvE came along. That's a big factor in why it is the way it is. And I mean, probably a really good example of why you should not, you should
stick to
peanut butter and your jelly,
you should
right?
just stick to what you're good at, And that's what the censor's kind of saying.
It's an example. It's like the opposite example of what would happen, I think, to Pantheon if they switched now to try and focus on PvP.
Oh yeah,
because you would have. Sorry, not putting that out there right now, but just to because it was a game that started out with a completely different focus, and Pantheon's focus is PvE. And then so any switch to PvP at this point it's gonna sacrifice things, I think, which is why, like I was saying earlier about the not focusing on it, despite me enjoying it.
Yeah, exactly. And so the last two comments here sort of bring in the RP element to it, because that was part of the question. And then how do you mix that into PvE or PvP focus? And Crowsinger says she would strictly prefer PvE. With PvP on another planet altogether. She says probably prefer roleplay because RP servers often have lovely communities. She cites the Lotro community on Landerval. That is where our guild is at. So she's, and there's always bands playing in Bree every night, that kind of thing. And then our friend Nathan Napalm says sort of the same thing, that he's looking at the RP servers because those role players make the world come alive. And it's like storytellers everywhere. Plus, all the events and taverns are the best on RP servers, with tavern brawls and some edgelords sulking in the shadows. So, I like bringing in the RP element of it here too. I think it does. I think if I was ever to play on a PvP server, I'd probably choose an RP one, just because it would make it a little bit softer. I could rationalize it a little more when I get killed immediately by, like Nathan says, the edgelords skulking in the shadows. But what do you guys think?
I mean, I played on Antonia Bale exclusively for most of my EQ2ing, and it was the most popular server because it started with an A. It was on the top of the list. I don't think they really foresaw that. But it was like the most populated server and had a thriving RP community, which got me super involved in RP, and I really, really enjoyed it. Like, great experiences, like from here all the way to the present day, and I long for that kind of community again. And so, if Pantheon has RP PvE, absolutely going into it, because I expect a lot of my fellows to also, even if they don't RP, they can kind of see, you know, other things about those servers that they tend to like in this fashion.
Yeah, and I would say Red, based on the amount of times we've seen you put face paint on and dress up and do characters in your videos, you probably are in favor of this as well.
Well, I was gonna do a quick PSA that, like, so when you see PvP or RP next to the name of a server and you're on that server, be nice. Like,
Yeah.
you go to the server, don't trash the server for what it's there for.
Yeah.
Just be nice.
And you know
somebody's PSA.
Somebody's going to say, well, I'm role playing evil, so
every time.
I have to be a jerk to you.
No,
right?
you're role playing being a jerk. There's a difference.
And you're not even role playing, you're just
I've
being
seen-
yourself.
I've seen that discussion so many times in the MMO communities. People are like, no, that's not role playing evil. That's just being a dick, right? So,
Yeah, just
okay.
let people enjoy what they enjoy.
Since we're like a little
Right.
bit like, you know, okay with time, really short story to just exemplify this is that one of my favorite RP memories was in EQ2 when this guy, he was like literally top tier raider. I wish I could remember his name, but he went to this tavern where there was a lot of RP happening. Anyone at EQ2 might remember Blood Hazan. But he actually went along with some random person, like knocking him out with like a mug. This is all played out in like text and like emotes and stuff. And he totally went along with it. He was like this ogre, like big old, like his armor was like crazy looking and he was all, you know, like gruff and everything. But he totally went and played along with it. I think that's the essence of RP, is that you adapt to a story. And so when we're talking about people on RP servers, it's like, you don't have to role play with people. You can opt out. Like, that's totally fine. But the desire to not just be the focus of attention, but instead to help weave a story with other people is so much more akin to D&D, which I think a lot, modern players are actually a lot more keen on. It's actually quite popular now. So that's kind of how I see it and why people might be drawn to an RP PvE server.
Yeah, I can get behind that. I think stories like that are awesome and they stick with you, as we've said before. So yeah, that's a good bring up. Man,
Can I ask one last thing about PvP before I move on?
For sure.
It's a very important question here. So Theric,
Yes.
so this question is directly for you.
Okay.
Who would win between all the Rangers in a best of the best?
Oh man, you mean amongst the races or in a like...
No. Amongst all of you who are going to play Rangers.
Oh wow, jeez. Well, I mean, you know what? I'll be the humble one and say not me. But I think Zealec in our guild is he's pretty on point with his ranger skills.
You know, I was
don't
gonna
know.
say Zealec too, but then I remembered that Sparrow exists, and so like,
Ooh, wait, can I change my answer? I don't want to get Sparrow mad because she's been known to rip faces off. Yeah, no, definitely Sparrow. So definitely Sparrow.
That's one of my favorites. So I go back to, this is with PvP. I was not on PvP server in EverQuest, but you could duel, right? And one of my very first memories, and Dez's story actually made me think of this, because I remember it was an Ogre Shadow Knight, and he won the best of the best Shadow Knight PvP in Common Lands. I don't remember his name, but I can still like remember like, oh, that's so cool. Like, you know, like just like, it was just so cool to see.
Yeah.
And so like, that's like almost a combination of the RP PvP, right? Because it's all made by a group of people that just get together and they duel.
Yeah.
Right.
Well-
and it set their own rules and figured out that way. And it was class best of the best. And man, that memory has stayed with me for like 20 years.
That's crazy that you mentioned that, Red. Actually, Desrin, you've seen that video of Vanguard. Remember I showed you that
Yeah.
video of my guild in Vanguard?
Yeah, dude.
We set up a best of the best tournament, and it was us standing on the bridge outside of New Targanor, I think, just dueling and having a great time.
so
and I'm
fun.
not a PvPer, but that's exactly what you're talking about. And that kind of thing, there is a place for it, but I don't consider that. I never considered that PvP. I consider that more just like dueling, right? Like it's not the same
Yeah.
to me. I don't
And
know.
luckily it has been
So we
pretty
need at
much
least a slash duel command.
Yeah, I can't.
And
imagine
I was
there
just gonna
won't be.
say, like, at
Yeah.
least that has been pretty much confirmed. So, like, I'm sure we will get a slash
Yep.
duel in Pantheon, if anything.
Right. So, wow. Well, you know what? It's a lot of PvP talk. I think I need some more friendly content. How about we listen to a few listener
Oh, yeah.
messages? So, yeah, this first set comes to us from Relax, Morak, Gulo, and Xanafel. So check these out.
Yes.
Hey Pantheon Rewind and Pantheon fans, this is Relax, first time caller, long time listener. I first found out about Pantheon Plus through YouTube and saw that you did a podcast, so I've been listening ever since. I work on Sundays, and one of the things I look forward to is listening to the podcast. I remember when Minus was around, and now look at him working for VR. How cool is that? Thank you for the space you provide for the community. You encourage, inspire, and motivate people to make their own content, whether it be streaming, uploading videos, making websites, creating art, almost anything. So that's really cool. Everyone at Pantheon Plus does a great job, so thank you for the time you set aside to bring us more Pantheon content. I look forward to the day we can explore Terminus together.
Hey Pantheon Plus, this is Morak. Just wanted to give a quick shout out to say congrats on 100 episodes of The Rewind. It's quite an undertaking. I, along with I'm sure a bunch of other people, we use you guys as a major source of keeping up with Pantheon, so I just wanted to say thank you for that. And that hopefully in the future I'm gonna come up with some more fan art for you guys. So anyways, just wanted to say congrats and onwards and upwards.
Hello guys and gals, this is Gulo. Just wanted to stop by, give thanks to the ravenous reader, the Lord of Lore, Theric, the connoisseur of community comments, and hype killer himself, Desrin, the entire Pantheon Plus community. You know, it wouldn't be the same without all you guys. The Rewind regulars who show up for the premiere and have lots of fun and great discussions. Thank you all. Can't wait to see you all in game someday.
Hello, this is Xanafel saying congratulations to Pantheon Plus on 100 episodes of The Rewind. Thank you to everyone who works on the show, and especially thank you to Theric and Desrin for hosting. Also, thank you to all the content creators. Your passion for Pantheon is inspiring. Lastly, but not least, thank you to the always friendly, always inclusive, ever-growing Pantheon Plus community. See you in Terminus.
All right, so that's it for VR news. We went long as we said we were going to. Let's talk about some quick notes from Pantheon Plus here. If you missed it this week, we had the 2022 Dungeon Group Draft, and we held it. And as I don't know about you guys, but I do know you guys had a blast because I did, and we've talked about it since. But Redbeard, I need to ask you because you were an early selection of Team Sparrow on your Darkmer Necromancer at the cost of 17 beans. What was your reaction to that selection? How you feeling about being on Team Sparrow?
Well, I mean, I'm on the best team, obviously, and
Yeah.
we're built with the purpose of kiting. And despite Minus repeatedly questioning my existence at launch, we're going to be very solid. You know, the Rangers can take care of navigating the open, seamless world, and as a Necro, I'll lead us through the dungeons and the crypts. But
Nice.
Jokes aside, I was just happy to be part of the first dungeon draft, and I'm already looking forward to next year. I mean, y'all did a great job organizing the event. It's not easy to pull off. There's so many moving parts, and it went off without a hitch. So excellent work.
Yeah, props to Drac.
Thanks.
I mean,
Totally
everyone,
props to
but
Drac, and
yeah, this is Drac.
he absolutely deserves all the credit, and he worked very, very hard on that. But Desrin, I want to ask you too, because you were a team leader of Team Community, and reflections on the community team and how the draft went for you guys.
I mean, I'm extremely proud with what we ended up with. I had some doubts as the community was sending me their their bids, especially as I saw our beans getting lower and lower. But
As the one who has been in that role in the previous years, I can tell you it is not easy. I know how hard that is. Community is not as organized as you might think.
you know, I was just trying to trust that they had a plan, and they said they had a plan on multiple occasions.
Yeah, right.
And I don't know, maybe they did, but we did end up turning out with a really great team, and I was just really. I have a little thing to admit, and that's I actually did circumvent the community's request at one point, and I bid. I think it was like 22 beans on something that the community said was max 20. It was an accident.
drama.
It was an accident.
Yeah. Wow. Revelation.
And it didn't really make a difference, I would say. But I feel like I have to come clean with that.
Oh boy.
No,
Oh,
that's something you bury. You don't tell that.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's too late now.
so honest, but you know what? Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was the right move. I don't know. Let anybody who was there for that and was part of the community green room, let us know in the comments what you think of Dez's nefarious and selfish behavior. But I'm kidding, of course. You know, it was an amazing night of community fun, and I again want to shout out Drac for his wizardry in getting this thing done. You did a great job, my friend. Next year is going to be awesome, and let's hear from Drac actually, because he send in a voice message for the show, and I want to play that here. So he actually recounts a time that I remember very well. So check this out.
Well, first off, hats off to Minus for starting this whole thing. You know, he had the vision, he had everything. They got this thing started, so that's awesome. But I remember when we were sitting here a year ago and we're like, what are we going to do with Pantheon Plus without Minus? And Desrin and Theric were like, we're taking on the Rewind, and you guys have killed it. Absolutely killed it since then. So excited for the Rewind and so excited for the 100th episode. And you guys deserve every bit of accolades that you're getting today. Have a great day. Drac Attack out.
All right, so let's take a quick peek at the content calendar for this week and how it's shaping up. Monday, this is the week of May 2nd through to May 8th. Monday, we've got Crypt Fox playing Dead by Final Fantasy 14. Sorry, on his
You're so used to it, right?
And I know Dead by Daylight is his game, but he's switching it up. He's doing some Final Fantasy 14, which is awesome. Drax doing his Midnight EverQuest crew adventures. On 9 o'clock on Tuesday, we've got our MMO 101 on Twitch doing Project Gorgon, continuing on our adventures there. Sparrow's playing Lord of the Rings Online on her channel at 9 p.m. on Wednesday. Friday, Redbeard, I'm gonna ask you a little bit more about this because I want to know about this video you're talking about. You've got the 5 craziest things in MMOs. What's that about? What's this?
So is this like my very own free community spotlight? I don't have to pay extra for this, right?
No, this is all you, man.
Okay, well, I'm trying something a bit new this week, and it's something I've wanted to do for a while. I'm going to be covering the 5 of the craziest stories from MMOs over the years. And in doing the research so far, like, wow, there's some crazy stuff out there that's happened in the last, I guess, like really the last 25 years or so. But honestly, I'm kind of hoping to get lots of interesting comments about people's own crazy MMO stories more than anything.
Oh man, that's got to be the most fun thing to research.
It is.
I know. I cannot wait. I kind of look for that stuff, and I've watched some videos about some of these, you know, monumental events from the MMO history. But man, that's gonna be great. So that's going up on Friday, right? 10 o'clock in the morning on Friday.
Right around there, yeah.
Nice. We'll hold you to that schedule, 100%.
I will disappoint you.
Yeah, good. So lastly, you know, with all the excitement of this week's draft and then episode 100 now, you know, I have to say that we do need a moment here at the Rewind to, you know, sometimes get back and collect ourselves. So there won't be a Rewind next week. I know that it may be on the calendar. Hopefully it's not. I should have fixed it. But anyway, I'll be out of town actually hiking in the Canadian wilds. So it's sort of my fault. But as long as, you know, I don't aggro any bears, you know, we will be back for episode 101 on Sunday, May 15th. But if I do, you know, happen to get bear aggro red, I hope that you've enjoyed yourself so far, because you might be having a new gig going on here if I can't make it.
The master plan is coming into focus.
Yeah.
So
my exit
Derek,
strategy.
Derek, that package that smells a lot like honey and fresh fish. Yeah, just keep it on you.
Yeah. Okay. That's like, is that my ration? Is that you're not trying to get me killed?
You know,
or
it's just
how kind.
It's for your health. It's for your health.
Nice.
Really though, like
sounds like a good plan.
That episode we come back, I would be willing to bet it's going to be a very good one, and that's all I'll say.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. And all right, cool. So that's it for VR news and notes. But let's hear some more voice messages from our lovely community. This is coming to us from Kyle Katarn, from Mujin, Otaladab, and Feasty Central. So check this out.
Greetings, Pantheon Plus. Greetings, Pantheon Plus Rewind. This is Kyle Katarn. Well, at least I'm known as that on the Discord. Congratulations on 100 episodes. What a great milestone. Congratulations to Theric and Desrin, Drac, Minus, all of you guys. What an incredible community you have all built. Rewind has become such a crucial part of my week. I do enjoy listening to it on my Sundays as I'm getting ready for the week ahead. It has been a very difficult couple of months, but there is something special about that Rewind podcast, and I appreciate all you guys do, whether it's keeping us all Pantheon patient or keeping our hype in check and giving us something to do week in and week out while we're waiting patiently for this game. Thanks once again. Congratulations once again, and I'm looking forward to meeting you all in game eventually.
Hello, Mujin here, or as you may know me, the Beard Lord. I wanted to say congratulations on reaching episode 100. I do want to say that I kind of missed the Minus rant. Maybe you could have him guest star to do a Minus rant, or you could do a best of Minus rants. Anyhow, I hope we're all in alpha for Pantheon before we reach episode 200, but who knows? One can hope, right? Thanks again for helping start the legend of the Beard Lord, and cheers to you.
Hey everyone, Otaladab here. Just want to give a congratulations to everyone there at Pantheon Plus with 100 episodes of The Rewind. Been listening since day one, and you guys do an amazing job over there keeping up with everything Pantheon related and breaking everything down. I really look forward to your guys' episodes every week and can't wait for more. So good job, guys. Congratulations and cheers.
When the Pantheon community speaks, we listen. So let's dig into the forums and fan projects to see what the discussion's all about.
All right, this week's community discussion, it might not be what you expect, actually. So if you go to the forums right now, you'll see kind of an above average activity, I would say. Like, it's probably thanks to a few of really kind of awesome official Pantheon content that we've gotten recently. There's quite a few interesting threads on all sorts of topics, really, but mostly techniques and kind of how looting works, or server types, as we saw above. Some fun new things as well. But this week, I was reading through these threads, and I kind of found a nugget that touches on something that's been on my mind recently, like literally as I'm trying to go to sleep. So I really wanted to cover it, and it comes from pretty unassuming thread from Fazool, who I think we've covered before, but it's just titled Joppa and Immersion Examples. Completely ambiguous. So it's, may not have the luster of a Stonefish or Dickensu title, but
your favorite.
But yeah, this really unassuming thread is just, so it's actually addressing a part of that recent interview Joppa did with Josh Corbett, as we addressed earlier. How one point Joppa's talking about kind of just how a game makes you feel, and how that feeling can lead to certain kinds of fun. And the example he cited was from Escape from Tarkov, where Joppa's kind of talking about how, at one point he's literally too scared to move from a bush, and just how kind of riveting that experience was. And the topic itself, so from Fazool, they're bringing in this older game called Thief, the Dark Project, which I hate to say it, but I've actually never heard of this before.
You've never heard of Thief?
Oh,
the
I
Dark
knew this
Project
was
before?
going to happen.
Wow.
I knew this was happening.
I think I've played that game.
That's a classic, man. That's a classic. Really well.
Well, I'm finding this out, but it actually came and was released before I even had access to a computer at home. Okay, so
Oh, you young.
I know. But so for those that don't know, because I'm sure you're out there, but if you don't know, like myself, Thief was a first-person stealth RPG, and it was released in 1998, where the main gameplay loops are, well, like thievery, obviously, but sneaking around, a lot of mystery, and a bit of supernatural stuff too. But so I looked it up, and I was really surprised at like just all these accolades that it received. So, for example, it's claimed to be the first-person game to use light and shadow as mechanics for stealth, which, I mean, obviously influenced countless games after it. A lot of the gameplay I watched was super interesting, like just a lot of problem solving, but like doing so by using and manipulating the environment, hint, hint, and a lot of just kind of general intrigue with the setting. And the thing that fazool is kind of getting at in this example, though, it's just the feel, the general ambient feel. And even through just watching videos, because I actually watched like a full review that, I'll link it in the show notes. Like I get what he's saying. In spite of the obviously super late 90s graphics, the whole experience kind of just culminates to something that would be so easy to get pulled into. Like I see it, and a ton of people in this thread are actually agreeing. Like, I know you guys are like, oh, you didn't play this. I never heard of it, but obviously it made an impression, right? And so that's what we're covering today, I guess. It's just kind of how games can really pull us in like that, even decades ago. So like we know it's not just the graphics, right? So yeah, right off the bat, because I think we need a little bit of direction in this. So one of the comments in the thread says, and this is from Ixar, they think it has a lot to do with that first-person camera. And so you notice I'm not going to give you guys an opportunity to bag on me anymore, so I'm going to ask a direct question to Red. Say,
Nice.
do you guys think the first-person camera is like a needed ingredient for immersion? Like, is that what made this so popular?
So I'm going to go with an emphatic no here, because first person has usually actually taken me out of a game. It has the opposite effect on me. And I think it's because it usually approaches some kind of uncanny valley thing for me. Like I'm not wearing a headset, so I'm already set apart from the first person view. It's not like directly what I'm seeing. So it takes me a little bit more time to orient myself to that first person view in the game than third person, because third person, I guess I'm just already ready to be a little bit taken aback, and then I can see more of the world, so I get to experience more. So some of this could just be how I grew up playing games that were predominantly third person, but given the option, I've always gone with third person, and those have always been the games I'm most immersed in. Give me Dragon Age over Elder Scrolls any day. Sorry, not sorry about that. It's the lore, it's the characters, it's the story. That all supersedes point of view, mechanics, and graphics to me.
Okay, I gotta jump in.
Yeah, well,
here
you have
because
experience with this, right? So, like the game too.
So I do, and I have the exact opposite opinion of with that, or at least experience with that from what you just said, Red. The first person view in those games, in Thief and original EverQuest, completely pulled me in. I find it way more immersive than the over the shoulder third person view. If you want a modern comparison for Thief, it's the Dishonored games. I'm sure you guys are familiar with those ones because they were actually inspired. There's a lot of inspiration,
I was seeing that in my
spiritual
research.
successor. So, and if now I've played the first Dishonored game. I haven't played the second one, but I'm pretty sure they're both first person view exclusively. So yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to, because it was interesting to me here, because you mentioned EverQuest, like playing EverQuest in first person, which I think is like, that's definitely something I did not do. I always played EverQuest in third person, but I think there's something to be said. Like, so games like Thief, I've been playing Halo a lot recently. Halo Infinite, and Halo Infinite would be weird if it wasn't first person. So I think there's a thing here where like the game type matters, like how
That's
immersive it is that way. Like so Thief, I mean I don't remember playing. I remember renting it from like Blockbuster, but I don't remember playing it because I think I didn't like it. But I imagine it's gonna be like a lot of like sound and having a limited view, which is kind of the same as Halo. Like you need a limited view to add that immersion. It adds a different part of the game, and even that limited view adds a difficulty. Which is why I think I went with Dragon Age versus Elder Scrolls, because they're both RPGs.
Yeah.
And they both are very different in the approach they take. But I mean, I loved all 3 Dragon Age games. And I mean, I still played a lot of Skyrim, but Dragon Age was just more immersive to me with that third person view.
Yeah. I mean, so like it really makes me think of kind of 2 different examples. One, which is more recent, so that's Skyrim, but specifically with the Wildlander mod setup. I think I mentioned this a few times, but it's a huge mod pack, and its entire like focus is on immersion and role play and you know whatever. And that actually has drawn me in and immersed me more than pretty much any modern game out there. Again, because it's completely focused on that. And the interesting thing is the mod pack actually gives support for third person, like, you know, movement. It's really good. But I don't like it. I choose to be in first person in that setup because when I'm playing Wildlander, I am like in the mode of I'm going to be immersed, you know, like I've chosen this. But like the other one is, it's a little bit more obscure, but since we brought up Thief, you know, maybe someone else has played this, but it's this game I bought like totally on a whim in like 2006. It's called Call of Cthulhu: Dark Corners of the Earth. And I actually don't even think I even beat it, but it actually still lingers in my mind as probably one of my favorite creepy games ever. And I mean, I love Lovecraft already, but it drew me in more than just about anything else in that time period. And I really loved EverQuest too. And I would say it was fairly immersive in some ways, but that game was really the pinnacle of like I kind of feel part of it, right? Or even, I mean, since we mentioned Mortal Online 2, right? You remember my cave story from a couple episodes ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, of course.
But again, I can't deny that's it's first person. So either there's a connection between first person, at least for me, and immersion, or it's just something about what a lot of these first person games have done that happens to immerse you, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it does.
Okay,
I think it makes a lot of sense.
I've got 2 things here because I mean I can hear raid leaders all over EverQuest screaming about first person and standing in the fire. But the other thing I want to ask, because you both play Elden Ring. Elden Ring isn't first person. Are you saying that Elden Ring isn't immersive?
That's a really good point. And I actually had it. I was thinking about it while I was talking about the other game, but like, yeah, no, it's super immersive and it's not in first person at all. So
yeah.
I don't think it like prevents immersion to play in third person. I just think that being in first person
helps, like
maybe assists with it or adds to it, I guess.
Yeah. That is actually you got me, Red. Like you got me, because that's totally true. Elden Ring has been extremely immersive, and well, okay. How about this? So there's a bit of a kind of self-indulgent reason, like why I really wanted to do this topic. And while they're back and forth between like first and third person, like we could go on forever. That's been talked about, right? But Renarius comes in with this, and like this just set me off because again, I've literally been going to sleep thinking about this. Like unfortunately I didn't put this in here, but like I've literally written like an essay on this topic, like while I'm laying in bed on my phone. I'm not even joking. But you know, don't turn away yet, guys. This is going to be fairly short, but Renarius comes in with this. He says, I feel like immersion has more to do with me, my state of mind, and my ability to believe and how interested I am in the game or story than the game itself. Not to say that, the game design plays no part, but it's just not the biggest part. So what do you guys think of that before I kind of hop on the soapbox and, and get going?
Well, I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. There's always your mood supersedes everything, right? Like the place you're in, the headspace you're in supersedes everything. No game, if you're not in the place where you can get immersed, you're not going to get immersed no matter what style the game is in. So, that's my take on it anyway.
Red, anything?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because I mean, it's I gotta agree because I mean, so I would say that there's definitely games that have kind of forced me to be immersed. Like, I think I remember in going back to Elden Ring. So I stream Elden Ring, which means my attention is always in multiple places. Yeah. So it's always, it's always breaking my attention. But I think I remember there's a specific moment when you first exit the tutorial in Elden Ring where I just kind of sat back.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa.
I know exactly where you mean too. Yeah.
And God, I have to mention this game because it's gonna prove y'all's first person point. Outer Wilds.
Oh, I knew you were going there. I knew that's what you were going to say. You're 100% right. Yeah, 100%.
That game, the way it does it is so... That game forces you to be immersed because of how it's made.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I kind of see where Renaris is coming from, because I've also seen people play Outer Wilds that they just don't get into it. They don't get immersed in it because they're not in the mindset to get into it.
Yeah.
The game requires you to be immersed to be able to enjoy it. And so, it's one of those things you do have to, it is that agreement that that between yourself and the game to kind of be there. You have to be present.
Oh man, that's leading right into exactly what I kind of broke it down into as I think about this, because I really do believe that the ability to have an immersive experience is it's like a handshake. You said agreement, but I'm thinking a handshake, and it's this thing between the player and the game. And if either one refuses or even just doesn't feel comfortable reaching out, the handshake just can never happen. The game has to do everything in its power to make sure that the player feels comfortable suspending their disbelief, kind of allowing them to easily give themselves over, right? But it's not the whole picture. And so I think the games that do this best are kind of the ones that make absolutely sure to remove everything and anything that can remind you that you're playing a game, right? It's really hard to be immersed when you're getting pop-up notifications, or the UI stands out really bad, or if the mechanics feel really clunky and artificial,
Lost Ark.
But these games, they just do everything they can to make sure you're not distracted. And I think every game that we've mentioned so far does this professionally, right? The other side though is it's the big one. It's the players. We really need to acknowledge that we also have a responsibility. Video games have been a thing for a long time now. And I feel in spite of, getting these really realistic graphics and all this, it's actually harder than ever to immerse the modern gamer because our mindset is just so far away from immersion to start. Because everyone's kind of thinking about progression. They're thinking about achievements or, beating the game, So whatever you call it, I really believe that gamers are actually extremely responsible for our immersion. Like Renaris is saying, I think it's mostly our fault. We're approaching RPGs with the wrong attitude and then kind of blaming them for not immersing us. Maybe not all the time. Like you said, some kind of try to force you into it. But yeah, it goes both ways,
Mm-hmm. For sure. And I've said this before, but I think we live in the age of distraction where everything's trying to vie for your attention at any given moment. And we really have to be purposeful in our intent and setting up ourselves for an experience. You got to turn off that second monitor. You got to put your phone away. You got to like flip everything over, like just be in the moment and be mindful of what the experience you want is getting harder and harder to do. And, when I'm gaming, my gaming time is so limited that I can't afford to not set myself up for the best experience. So I do try to do that. So
that's good. Because I think, could you imagine, like, it must be so hard for these devs that actually do try to make their games immersive, right? Because like Red, could you imagine if someone was like, dude, I read your whole series in 2 hours? I'm pretty sure that's a record. But man, I just didn't really like it. Didn't really grab me. Like, you'd be like, that's your fault.
I'm pretty sure that's where my 2-star review came from.
Woe to your 2-star review.
But they did progress. They
finished it.
Leveled max level in 2 hours reading your book.
Yeah, they got an achievement.
Yeah.
But like really, like that. Imagine, like, that's probably how it feels to developers. And so, like, my whole bringing it all around is like, I truly believe more than ever that Pantheon in this sense is different in that they are truly focusing on a world, and like above all these other things that have been attached to MMOs over the years that have just grown to be normalized and things that people are used to. We're talking about dailies earlier. We're talking like all like pop-ups or anything to remind you you're playing a game. But Pantheon is like, again, worlds, not games, right? Like, we're not building a world, we're building a game. And if anyone asks me like why I'm so vehemently behind this project, it's because that bit of art I feel needs to be preserved in the gaming industry. And I don't really see it happening from other developers. And so VR, please keep doing what you're doing, like, draw us into the world, and we have to choose to be drawn in. But as long as they make it as easy as possible, I think we're really in for something special. If we're all doing the handshake,
Agreed. Yeah, really well said, man. Really well said.
All right. Mm-hmm. Well, I guess that's going to be it for this week's community discussion. As always, feel free to let us know in the comments what you think. In this case, you're more than welcome to write essays. I will read through your essays and attempt to respond because this is something I'm really passionate about lately, and I'd love to hear people's thoughts. But yeah, while that's it this week, that's actually not going to be the last thing we're going to discuss. Isn't that right, Red?
Right, you are, Des. I'm here to get everyone riled up about a subject we deal with every single time we post a video about Pantheon. The vociferous vaporware champion, the naysaying needler.
I love
and
that.
the potential group mate when Pantheon does release.
Oh.
Yeah, right? Okay, took you on a journey there. Well, so I wanted to talk about this topic because there's always going to be people who question whether or not Pantheon will release. It'll be this way until it actually does, and I think it's important that as a community and as a content creator with a heavy focus on Pantheon, that we treat people with questions and concerns with respect and dignity. They're legitimate concerns, and they shouldn't be discounted just because we may have a stronger belief in the project than they do. I'm sure there are other MMO projects out there that we have our own doubts about, Star Citizen, that have their own legion of fans and communities. I think it's something we need to strive for as a community, to keep the doors open to people who may need to see and play before believing in a game. There's nothing wrong with that viewpoint, at least in my opinion, but it's one I try to handle delicately and naturally. I'm not going to respond to comments that don't at least provide some sort of counter or context or seem open to discussion. So I want to pose the question here about how you view people whose Pantheon patience has expired. The people who don't trust in Pantheon, the skeptics, let's say.
Yeah, this is super relevant. And like you say, something we see all the time. So, I always take the approach that people are free to hold whatever opinion they want. And, at the end of the day, you are entitled to, you have to have a reasonable opinion. If your opinion is based on something that's reasonable and you've got the, something, information or facts to sort of support your position, then you're entitled to that. And I would encourage people to voice those opinions. But the problem that I have, where I get into trouble, is because when I see just the copy pasting, when I see it as being more along the lines of, we get into these tribes, right? Where we get into these tribes of, I'm a skeptic, I'm a believer, I'm a white knight, I'm a, whatever. When you start identifying and labeling people like that, that's when you get into this team mentality of it's us versus them and it's you versus me. And you have to, I separate myself from that a little bit in that, I am what I am today. I don't know what I'll be tomorrow, right? Like you have to maintain that fluidity of, I guess, going where the facts lead you, or going where the information takes you, I guess. So, it can be difficult to see as a content creator. It can be difficult to see like people whose, like you say, Pantheon patience is expired. And I want it to be genuine. If I feel like it's genuine and it's coming from a place where they really feel that way, then I respect that. If I feel like it's coming from a place where I heard this somewhere else and I want to be part of this team, then I tend to dismiss it. So maybe that's just me. What about you, Des?
I resonate with that a little bit. Where I kind of draw the line, and I would say I'm usually a pretty tolerable person. I don't want to talk myself up too much, but like when it comes to, like you said, the copy pasted thing, or the folks that will, more or less, it seems like troll comments, it gets a little hazy because another kind of, I guess, lifestyle choice of mine is like, I don't want to ever cause strife in someone just for no reason. And a lot of like mean-spirited comments kind of go over that line for me, where it's like, you're not doing any good, and yet you're expending energy to kind of impress these things on others. And that's where I super disagree. My preferred mode is just to ignore, right? But like Theric said, if someone's just genuine, like their love of Pantheon has gone out the window because they've been waiting so long, or, maybe they're not as inspired anymore since Brad passed, because like that's a thing. I'll just throw it out there. I'm sympathetic, absolutely. You're more than welcome to be part of the community. I wouldn't like put a keep out sign for anyone that's skeptical. But like I said, my exception comes when people will literally expend energy just to bring others down. And that is how I see the really unhelpful, uncritical, it's just, game's never coming out kind of a thing. Because
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, when you see the same phrase over and over again, then maybe there's just not a lot of thought put into it. It's just somebody parroting somebody that they like or they respect, or that they let somebody else do the thinking for them. That's where I have a problem. But Red, you as a content creator, I'm like I know why this topic is really important and meaningful. So what's your approach here?
Well, so I've kind of adopted the co-carnage axiom of don't yuck someone else's yum, right? And so my channel in general tries to be very positive. I may have been a little too positive about some games like New World, but that's okay. I think I try and approach it with what is the intent of the comment. If the comment is literally just to get a reaction and that's it, then I don't give them the reaction.
Yeah.
I have that power as the creator, right? But if the comment is coming from a place where I feel like some explanation of the difference, say, for example, between a crowdfunded project, which, I mean, like the common misconception with Pantheon, oh, they started development in 2014. That's not true.
No,
Like
right.
the idea, but that's not. So you get like they compare it to a game like Elder Scrolls Online, which was, I think, like 6 years, 8 years, something like that.
I mean,
6 years,
and
think,
it
for
was an
development.
idea way before,
But it's
right?
much more than that. Yeah. So when it's being compared like that, then I feel like at that point, like that's something that could be pointed out, that there is a difference in a crowdfunded, which needs attention before it's a thing, compared to a game that doesn't get announced until it's pretty far along because it already has funding. So I think when there's like misconceptions, I think that's a place where you could step in and, in a genuine way, in a kind way, and not a, I know this and you don't know this, not a superiority type way, but just kind of a, just a nice way of engaging and trying to say like, well, my understanding is this. Then I think that's a good time to kind of help. Not convince is the wrong word. The convince is not what I'm trying to do, but just give people as much information as they can get so that they can make the decision themselves.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I'm going to be very positive about Pantheon in my videos because I've been following this game for a long time and I'm very eager for it. So I think just trying to be as understanding to people that have not been following it as long as I have, that are not as interested or have been burned by other games. Like, not everyone is as forgiving as I am to other crowdfunded projects. I crowdfunded Crowfall and I crowdfunded Legends of Aria. Both of those games have let me down, but I'm still glad I backed them because I feel passionate about the genre, and I want them to succeed. Just because a couple didn't, that doesn't mean that they were scams. And I think that's when it brings up scam, that's when they're gone.
Yeah,
like,
well, I mean,
if anyone calls it a scam, I'm done.
That's the problem right now, is that's the sort of the buzzword right now, and there's a lot of content creators that are scam busting and calling out scammers and all that kind of thing. It's just super in vogue right now. So
it gets views,
it gets clicks. We know that, and the problem is that people want to, like I said, they want to feel like they're a part of. They don't want to get fooled again. They don't want to get burned again. They want to. There's safety in the belief of a scam, and there's safety in the belief of I'm not going to be a fool. And it's. I mean, you should have that sense about you. You should have that self-preservation sense. But on the other hand, like if you do your research and the facts, and again, there's lots of content creators out there, like, Basgrim does a great job of fighting this with facts, and that's how you do it, right? That's what you do.
He's like my example of how to do it appropriately, honestly.
Yeah, like you fight bad speech with better speech, like that saying is out there in other contexts. So, I feel like that's applicable.
Yeah. Like kind of like a little thing I want to add in here, because we do get like critical people like listening to our rewind, which I feel extremely honored by, and I can't stress that enough. That you would listen to us in spite of being skeptical makes my day, because I want to be super clear in that we are very open to being critical of VR, of Pantheon, and that was a big deal for me coming onto the show, to feel open to do that. And I hope we have proven that, in spite of being overall very positive, that we openly are okay with talking about things. And my hope is that other people that are skeptical will see that and maybe consider their criticisms instead of just like the one-liners, right? Because we do.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, thank you for saying that, Desert. I'm glad. That's an important point to make. That we wouldn't, criticism is good. We want to be balanced. We want to be objective and critical, and we appreciate everybody who brings comments to our content, whatever. And I'm sure Red, you feel the same way. It's like it's engagement, right? And it's people bringing commentary and comments that you can have a conversation with.
It absolutely does. And I mean, one thing I wanted to add here is a potential different angle, which I've seen a little bit since I've covered a couple different games, is this it's low key, but seems to be this idea of competition between some of the crowdfunded MMOs. I don't know if y'all have seen that, but it's like,
yeah, I know what you're meaning.
This idea that, well, if yeah, like if one is going to succeed, only one is going to succeed. So, the other, if one is a scam, then they're all scams. But so it can only be the game that you're currently following that will be the one that is not a scam. So, I mean, I mean, that's like, so have people like digging up all kinds of stuff about the people in charge of the different things. And honestly, I just want them all to succeed. I think we're in a place with MMOs where we are in a place where you have genres of MMOs. Like, I mean,
imagine
you actually get to pick. Like, you can pick what type of game you want to play. Like the two biggest crowdfunded games that most of this community is going to be interested in are probably going to be Ashes of Creation and Pantheon, and they are very different. There's a lot of similarities, but there's a lot of difference. We're talking about PvP earlier.
Yeah.
They can both succeed.
That's why I relish our relationship with the AOC community, honestly, and VR does as well. And I stinking love that, and I hope people see it more, just because of this exact reason.
Yeah. No, it's a really, really good point. Really, really good angle on it there, Red. And I agree with you 100%. I think that's really well said. So we want to leave this here. You guys, anything else to say on this, or are we good to wrap this one up?
Let's do the things.
Put a bow on it.
Put a bow on it. Okay, so let's put a bow on it with a nice voicemail message from our friend Man of Rohan, who gets the family involved for this voice message. So let's check that out.
Hey Pantheon Plus crew, this is Man of Rohan, and since my family and I will likely be playing together, I thought it would be fun to have a conversation with them about it. What race and class do you want to be?
I want to be, starting with class, I want to be a summoner, and then I want to be, I'm debating right now, as for race, whether to be an elf or a gnome. I've narrowed it down to those two.
Why those two? What's exciting about those?
I just like being elves in general. I think they're pretty. And I like them from, like, Lord of the Rings and stuff. But I think gnomes are a little bit more, I guess, newer and more interesting than elves. Elves are a little bit more generic, maybe, and so I thought it'd be cool to try them, but I also don't want to be short.
But I want to be a halfling, and there's a possibility that you can be a halfling warrior. The second option would be Archire.
When do you think Pantheon will release?
Probably in the next 2 years, like everything else on planet Earth that's supposed to be released.
Well, not alpha. I hope the real game comes out, I guess,
in the next 2 years. Yeah, in the next year should be alpha.
When do you think alpha is going to release?
This summer.
This summer?
This summer.
Oh, that'd be great, wouldn't it? So you guys don't want to be evil characters at all?
Well,
No.
I'd rather do good characters first and then evil characters.
Well, because
we gotta have one
your
of both.
first character is important, in my opinion.
Better.
I also want to be able to choose nice hairstyles, because
So what are you looking forward to the most in Pantheon?
Playing a game that's like the original EverQuest, but not exactly. I know for some people, graphics isn't a big thing, but I like good graphics because it makes me feel good.
Is there any class that you don't ever you have no interest in at all?
race, definitely the Scar. They're creepy.
Oh, I know. The dark mirror. They're just like mermaids.
But as far as class, I don't know, if they come out with a necromancer, that would be on the bottom of my list. Thanks, Pantheon Plus.
Congratulations on 100 episodes.
The Pantheon community is full of cool projects, new people, and things that are just worth sharing. What's this over here? Look at that. So let's see what we can find in this week's Community Spotlight. All right, folks. Pretty quick one for the Community Spotlight this time. But first off, man, I'm happy to see someone in the Introduce Yourself subforum again. I feel like it's been a while since I saw one, and that's in spite of growing users in other places, if I may say so. And man, it's just, I know it's probably not the modern thing to do anymore, like to post to a forum, right? But hey, man, I just love when people post there. So this week we've got a really awesome one. This post is from Clacker, someone that originally started playing EverQuest in 1999 at 35 years old, which, as he said, makes him 58 now. So
I'm glad you didn't.
I
do the
didn't do
math.
it. He offered it.
If I had done the math there, that he's like 100 years old in my mind.
Yeah.
But
So he did it
I'm
for
terrible
me,
at
so
math.
I'm not outing him or anything. But so the cool thing about this is that Clacker says that the guild he joined back then, called Knights of the Whitewolf, which is actually the title of the post if you want to look this up, although it's in the show notes, of course. But they started with Meridian 59, which it's old, and that makes the guild about 26 to 27 years old. That is crazy, right? Like,
yeah, Meridian 59 is one of the ancient MMOs, one of the first ones.
yeah.
For sure.
So I mean, anyway, they're looking forward to playing a druid, awesome, or warrior, also awesome in Pantheon, and of course they're hoping they can pull in some of their guild members as well. So that's awesome. I can't wait. So go say hi to Clacker on the official forums, welcome him, and hopefully his guild to the community, because that is just so freaking cool to have such a legacy, right? To come into Pantheon, right?
Is that like a record?
I don't know. It might be. It might be. Clacker, if you're listening, like, let us know, because that is just too cool. But next up, we've got Crowsinger coming up with chapter 22 of our fan fiction series, In the Sway of Storms. So it looks like the series is actually concluding soon. And obviously, it's really exciting. So make sure to go check that out. And so the next thing I feel I need to shout out, I know we've talked about this a bit, but just in case they kind of go under the radar, all those commercials that were submitted to the Pantheon Plus Dungeon Draft, a lot of the creators have kind of put that on their channels or whatever. So just to real quick list them out, we've got Basgrim TV doing the Library of Pantheon commercial, our guy Redbeardflynn with his Necromancer commercial, Man of Rohan for the Sor Heareth. Oh no, I'm ruined.
What did you just
I'm
about
ruined.
say, Desrin? I know what you just about said.
I'm ruined. Oh, pain.
The
Sor Heareth funeral services. Oh my gosh.
That's
well,
better.
the Nathan Napalm also, this his commercial for going full time. Crypt Fox for his Twitch channel. So if you want to go check those out in their kind of standalone forms, definitely please go watch their channels, and because I know a lot of work is put into getting these all made up. So I just want to make sure they get their due spotlight.
Yeah, if you're only gonna go see one, go see Man of Rohan's.
I would say I'm not biased, but I'm a little biased. That dude deserves like 20,000 times more views than he gets.
He does. He
truly
really does.
Truly does. Yes, I can't agree. Can't disagree.
Well, lastly, just to wrap this up, we've actually got another video from Simurgh. And this one is where he dives into the new techniques and readiness system for Pantheon. And so what's cool about this, he seems pretty giddy about it. He's pretty interested because he kind of self-announces himself as a theory crafter. And so I could see why this really appeals to him. And so it's pretty short. I think it's like 10-minute video where he kind of breaks down what the newsletter says and gives his take on it. And so if you kind of want to check that out and see an Ashes of Creation guy kind of excited about some Pantheon mechanics, you go check that video out. But that is actually going to be it, guys, for this week's Community Spotlight.
Okay, and before we get to the lore I want to insert another voice message here. This one comes to us from Scipio, and they are promoting the Pantheon push-ups, so check this out.
Hey guys, this is Scipio. I've been following Pantheon for over 5 years now, but I've really come out of the shadows in the past year because of you guys, really encouraging people to get out there and engage with the community, which is awesome. Which, in inspiration of your 100th anniversary episode, which I don't think I have missed one, I want to do something to really keep me Pantheon patient, because within the spirit of what you guys do is keep us Pantheon patient, and it's amazing how you guys are able to bring up all this content constantly and keep us occupied and on the edge, which for so long, which is very impressive, honestly. So because of that inspired me to, hey, I'm gonna do the Pantheon push-ups challenge, which means I need to do 100 push-ups before launch. And that's my goal. That's the Pantheon push-ups challenge. And anybody can join me if they want to. It doesn't have to be, 100 push-ups. Whatever's within your means, whatever is possible for you, whether that's 10 pull-ups or 50 push-ups or whatever. Maybe do some mini goals in between there, maybe 50 push-ups till alpha. I think that's what I'm kind of going for. And, we're just keep us occupied, busy, self-improvement until the real thing comes out, because it is a struggle, especially for people like me who don't really game. I don't play anything right now. Haven't in a long time, because there's really nothing out there for us, and the only thing you can look forward to is a game like Pantheon. So it does really mean, the VR and what they're doing, what you guys are doing, does really mean a lot, because for many gamers like me who aren't really gamers anymore are waiting for that game. So I'll keep you guys updated, give you some video evidence maybe. By that time, I got lots of time to train and practice. If you want to join me, hit me up. Scipio, let's go. Let's push this game up. Let's do some push-ups. Pantheon push-ups. Peace out.
Sit back and relax. It's time for the lore you know. Okay, so lore time. Now, we're going to complete the tale of the halflings this week, and that means the events that led them to their current stature. It's a story of a king's arrogance, a wraith's cunning nature, and a curse that altered a race's destiny. On the planet of Hirith, in the town of Kirin Sound, we pick up the story of the future residents of Wild's End. As penned by Jan Gerhardt, I bring you the words that tell us of the halflings in Pantheon in this week's lore segment. Kirin Sound prospered in short order, the young mountain town benefiting from residents proud to till, clear, and build upon their own land. Before long, it behaved more like a kingdom. And after Marthas, rule was passed through a line of monarchs until the coronation of King Olenspeth III. Yet, on that night, the new king personified the soft luxury of Kirin Sound's era of fortune, imbibing the present and hazy on the past. For the mountains of Omel held another kingdom far below its heights, the realm of Moltz, the Laughing Wraith, king of specters. Kirin's gift to Marthas had caught the Laughing Wraith's attention long ago, and on this night he sought to ensnare his descendants. Pretending to honor King Olenspeth, a disguised Molth presented the choice of two gifts to the regent, eternal life or a reign of peace. When the naive king chose to never die, the Laughing Wraith howled for glee and revealed himself. Soaring above the assembly, he cursed the entire population with a birthright affliction that would diminish their physical maturity over the next 10 generations. The last generation of the race would be born only as souls, which Molths foretold with a squeal would be used to restore him to physical life, along with the might of the first magic. King Olenspeth was granted his portion, however, fated to watch his people disappear into ethereal subjugation. Yet, in the 5th generation, a maiden of Marthas' line named Lyon sought out the Wraith in the cavernous underworld. Deceiving him with a disguise herself, she challenged Molth, who thought her a harmless, misguided child. By this time, her people had been reduced to permanent adolescence, even at the peak of their lives. And though truly a youth, Lyon was a great student of riddle and the tricks of the Laughing Wraith. Declaring herself, she wagered the remaining 5 generations of her people against Molth's wit, and the greedy king took the play without contemplation. So gleeful was he that when Lyon proposed a further ante, Molth again complied. Yet, threaten and travail as he might, Molth could not unwind her riddle. Trapped in his greed, the wraith surrendered his laughter, and the suffocating curse upon the Carry was broken. Molth's laugh, for decades the haunt of every nightmare in the kingdom, was transformed to the emblem of his victim's joy, and the laughing wraith became the silent wraith forevermore. In that hour, their new namesake as halflings took root, for the curse could only be halted and not undone. This fifth of 10 generations embraced their having as a harbinger of mercy. Upon Terminus, there are evidences of the past still alive in the halfling society. The Escaps, many of whom still carry the blood of Kiri nobility, have a high but sincere mind about themselves, and would return to Hirith and Cairnsound if they could. Maiden Clan, an unrevealed group, even amongst the halflings themselves, seeking to honor the sacrifice of Lyon, they care little for the internal affairs of Wild's End, often venturing far beyond it. The Nothi are an unrepentant, wild breed. They fight, sing, and adventure with, as they believe, justified rebellion, embracing the youthful gift of the unfulfilled curse. Their heritage as wraith hunters is dreadfully serious, however. To avenge the wrongs of Molth, they persecute his ilk in every crevice of Terminus, chasing whispers that the silent wraith smolders in secret somewhere among the realms. And that is the lore you know. And that's it. 100 done and done. Well, almost, actually, because we actually have a few more voice messages to play before we say goodbye. And so last, but certainly not least, we're going to hear from our friend LaFail, from BitCrunch, and Zergjerk. So listen up.
Hi all, this is the Wood Elf Druid, formerly known as LaFail. My Terminus identity is still yet to be confirmed. I'd like to congratulate the P Plus crew and community on this milestone. 100 rewinds is a huge achievement. Special thanks to Theric, Des, Minus, Drac, Poiru, and all the other content creators and contributors. I realise it takes a lot of time to make something like the rewind, so thank you very, very much. Each one of my Mondays starts with the rewind, usually whilst preparing for work or in the gym, and it sets a positive tone for my week. More so, it really helps keep me engaged with the community and optimistic for Pantheon. To me, there wouldn't be Pantheon without P+. Your support of this game and its community cannot be understated. To VR, thank you for supporting this community. Your dedication to the game and transparency with us is sincerely appreciated and recognised. To P+, Derek, Des and Co, here's to another 100. I hope the P+ community becomes the mainstay fixture even after Pantheon is released. Onward and upward.
I just want to thank you for providing a central place for the community to meet up, hang out, and enjoy each other's company while we are all waiting for the game to launch. I have already met so many new friends in this community, and I can't wait to eventually play with you all.
Well, hello to you all non-gnome players. I am the only one, the Zergjerk, and I would like to thank Theric and Drag and all the bunch in making the rewinds happening. They have been a really nice waste of time when driving to home or to work to listen to them, because due to time zones I don't get to go to the live so often, which is the same. And I really enjoy, and I hope you continue doing the rewinds, even though Pantheon will release it someday, and you will use this rewind as a recap of patches and so on. And to VR, I say, please add reactionary and positional styles to spears and so on. So if I do a spear lance from the side, it gets bleed, and from the back it gets cripple. In front it does nothing, it's just normal damage. That would be an excellent addition to the melee engagement and the strategic. Well, you know what word I mean. And also, thank you for the show, and have a nice rest of this year.
Hey everyone, some of you know me as Feasty Central, and I want to say that I greatly appreciate Pantheon Plus, the ones in the spotlight as well as the ones behind the scenes, because I know it's a very big group effort. And I also want to say that even if I never get to play Pantheon, I can genuinely say that I appreciate being a part of this community, and it's been a blast. And I'm grateful and honored to be with you guys at the Rewind and all the other events hosted by Pantheon Plus. So thank you very much, and congrats on your 100th episode.
All right. So much gratitude I want to give you guys, to everybody who submitted those voice messages. I hope that the pledge giveaways have been well received. I hope everybody's had a good time. We could not do these shows and these giveaways without you. Specifically today, I want to thank our friend Redbeardflynn for joining us, man. It was awesome having you here. You are always welcome to come
100%.
back.
This was amazing. I had such a great time. Y'all make this so much fun. I really appreciate you. Thank
Dude,
you.
That's awesome. Love having you here. Desiree, my friend, it's always a pleasure. You do a wonderful job with this. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, sir.
So this is going to be well over a 2-hour show here. I hope that's enough to keep everybody satisfied, because remember, there is no show next week. That means we'll see you Sunday, May 15th for episode 101. Thank you again to everybody. We can't say it enough. It's been amazing doing this for 100 episodes, and we are so grateful for it. So until then, cheers, and thanks for hanging out with us.
Thank
today.
you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Pantheon Plus Rewind. Pantheon Plus is not affiliated with Visionary Realms. Be sure to check out our Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube channels under the name Pantheon Plus. You can follow Theric at Pantheon Theric on Twitter, and Desrin at DesrinDoes also on Twitter. And you can stay up to date with all things Pantheon at www.pantheon.plus. Until next time, cheers, and thanks for listening.